Yeah. So I would do it if it was yours. What? Your mom? It says your mom. I don't know if I would purchase it if it wasn't normal. What if I sponsored it? See, like if you put my hat on, so your mom on,
Okay, hey everyone, let's get started for today. Yeah, so some announcements first. We all know we have some due dates. So homework 9 is due Tuesday, and that'll just be the personal website. You can use any of the formats we talked about last lecture, or just anything you find in general to make it. Yeah, and also we made an announcement that check-ins for your final project will be November 16th, which I think is a Tuesday. And so these will be like probably around 5 or 10 minutes. You'll just check in with an instructor and just show any progress you've made so far. So any code you've written, maybe any plots or animations, though it's not really necessary to have any results yet. We just want to make sure that you're all like starting to work on your projects. Yeah, you definitely have to show at least some level of progress. So any code of any sort. And then you can also have a chance to ask us any questions you have and about like if you have anything to debug or anything else you're not sure about. And then this is also a while away, but final project presentations will be the week before Dead Week. And so this is November 30th, December 1st, and December 2nd. Yeah, so like basically the last week of classes. Okay, yeah, and also remember to ask us for help if you need it. We still have office hours. My office hours are basically after class today. And here's the attendance link as usual. Okay, anyone have any questions about logistics? Okay, so today we'll be talking about GitHub. And so this is basically the last tool we're basically going to show you. And this was really helpful for like in the future, any research or any sort of work that you do that involves coding, you'll probably run into GitHub. It's extremely helpful for if you're working in groups and if like multiple people want to make changes to some code files. This is the standard that basically everyone uses. So from small group projects, like even for your final project, you could use this, to really large companies like Google. Basically everyone uses GitHub. Okay, and so to start off for the day, we're just going to go over some of the commands. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to kind of discuss and go over like what do these basic commands mean. Okay, and I'll open up a breakout room for everyone on Zoom.
Sure, I don't remember these. Yeah. Except for make directory.
Oh my gosh. Oh no.
Okay, I feel like that should have been pretty quick, so let's go over these. Can someone tell me what does CD mean, or like not what it means, but like how would you use it? Like what does it do?
Change directory.
Right, so if you wanted to go into a directory, you could use CD space and then name of a directory you want to go into. Does anyone know what PWD means?
Bring back or bring blank.
Yeah, so if you type PWD, it'll give you the current working directory. What about mkdir or like makedir? Yes. Right, and so just whatever name, it'll put it in the path. And then what do we use ls for?
List the files on the left.
Yeah, so ls will just list all of the files in your current directory. Okay, yeah, and so this was important to know for Git just because we'll be needing this later. And so what exactly is GitHub? It's basically like Google Drive, but a lot more useful for coding specifically. So basically it allows you to put all of your code and related code files in one spot. So you can kind of think of it like a folder in Google Drive. Has similar functionality that you can share this folder with a lot of people so everyone can see it. And kind of similar idea with multiple people can also edit the files, open the files, and download them. And this is a lot more useful than Google Drive though, because it also has a lot of version history. So say like you can make some changes to a file, upload it, and then someone else can immediately pull the file without having to go and like re-download the folder. Or yeah, it's also really helpful if you want to go back, like the changes you made a week ago, you can go and restore those really easily. So it's really good for if you want to collaborate with people and have multiple people work on a file, or also just for yourself to keep track of all of your changes. And so normally you kind of use this through your terminal. So in the command prompt you have, or there's also this app called Github Desktop, which is really useful. It's basically just kind of has like, you know, an interface so that you can manage all of this without having to do terminal stuff. Okay, and I'll show you what GitHub looks like so we can kind of get a better idea. Right, okay, so if you go to github.com, it basically looks like this. And so you can see here that, you know, it's currently logged into my account, and there'll be like a list of repositories. So if we go to my profile, okay, you can see like I have some pin repositories, and you can see in general like different commits I've made. And so if we look at like this repository jellyfish that I made, I actually made this repository so I could work on a group project with people in a different class. So if you open it up, you can see we have a bunch of files. And then if you click on them, you can immediately see like what exactly is in the file. And so the really cool part of GitHub though, and why everyone uses it, is basically if you look here, you can see there's 186 commits to this repository. So basically 186 times someone has like pushed changes and actively said like save all these changes. So if we click this, you can kind of see like, on May 11th, I added a link, and then on May 11th, my like other teammate also did some stuff. And if we like click on these different commits, you can see exactly what my teammate did. They like, changed these words, added some other lines. And so this is like the main reason why this is such a standard and why everyone uses it. Yeah, okay. Right, so what exactly is a repository? You can basically think of it as like a folder on Google Drive. It just has a bunch of files and other folders in it. And so you can basically add files to it, remove files. You can edit stuff in it, but it's basically just a collection of files and other directories. Okay, and then we also have to kind of understand the difference between remote and local repositories. So as we saw on github.com, basically GitHub will basically have all of your repositories there, and you can go and access them. And so you can also change the access of your repository to public or private. So obviously, if it's public, basically anyone can see it. And if it's private, only people you share it with can see your repository. And normally you want to clone the repository from GitHub and then add it to your own computer. And then there you can kind of do stuff there. And then it's also accessible through Terminal or GitHub. And basically, you usually just do work on your computer. You can type in the code files, make changes, and then push them. And then they'll be reflected on the GitHub website as well. Yeah, and so the difference between a remote repository is that it's on the web, it's on GitHub. If you don't have internet, you can't access it. But if it's local, it's on your computer, and you can do stuff there. And you don't really need the internet or any Wi-Fi connection to make changes. Okay, and so the easiest way you would do this is again through Terminal. If you do some commands, it'll look something like this. Or using GitHub Desktop, which is really great especially if you're starting out. Okay, and then the basic workflow of it is pretty confusing at first. But basically, if you're in your current directory, you would do a command like git add, and you would add any files that you made a change in. And then this goes to something called a staging area, which is any files that have changes to them are in the staging area. Since they're not really committed to the repository yet, so people on other computers can't see it yet, but you're letting Git know to track these files, and that later, once you're done editing them, you'll want to upload them to the repository. And so to actually get them to the repo, you would do something like Git Commit, and this will commit them to your local repository, so basically to your computer. And it'll save all of the changes you have there. So if you look at a commit from a day ago, it'll have all of your changes up to that timestamp. And then if you want to get it to the remote repository, which is basically just the internet to github.com to anyone else working on the project, you would use git push to push these changes to the remote repository. And then, if you want to get changes from the remote repository, so say your teammate said, I made a bunch of changes, I just pushed them, you can access these by doing git pull and pulling the changes from the remote repository into your local computer and your local directory. And so then you can also see you can use git checkout if you want to go to a previous commit or go to a different branch. But this git checkout one is a bit more optional. Okay. So how do you use it? These are a list of some of the most important commands. Don't worry too much about it now. I'll be doing a demo so you can kind of see how these work. But in general, some important ones are git clone, which is how you can clone an existing repository. Git add, so you can add any files that you've made changes to. Git commit -m, and this allows you to also add like a message that basically just commits all of your changes. It's basically like hitting save. Git push pushes everything to the repo, and then git pull pulls everything from the repo. Yeah, so a typical workflow, you'd first want to pull any changes, and then you can go and do any of your work. And then once you're done, you would add your files, you would commit them, and then you would push them back to your repo. Okay, and then one last thing we have to kind of go over is these things called merge conflicts. So this can occur if multiple people are editing the same line of code. So if you're working on like a Google Doc with a friend, you can see you can both make changes at the same time and it'll just be reflected there. But since GitHub, it's basically you can both be making changes, but they only update when you push them. If you both made changes to the exact same line, GitHub will get really confused because it doesn't know whose version to take. So if you pull and you might see something like this down here with like these weird arrows and the word head and then all these random numbers. And it basically just means that multiple people have edited the same thing. So you just need to go and manually decide which version do you want to keep. So here, if you want to resolve this, you would decide like, do I want basically the code at the top or the code at the bottom? And then you just delete all of the weird file markers and push again. Yeah, but anyways, these are really annoying to deal with. So the best solution is to kind of coordinate with everyone and make sure you're not editing the exact same line. So usually if you're all working on like a huge project together, you'll say like, I'll be writing this part of the project with like these functions and say like, don't make any changes there. And then after you push, other people can like review your changes and make more changes. But yeah, just try to avoid editing the exact same part at the same time. Okay, and these are some other useful commands, kind of just for your reference. You don't really need to worry about them too much now. They're basically just also useful Git things to know. So obviously you can't, probably hard to absorb just from like seeing me go over some commands. So if you actually want to learn this, we definitely recommend looking through these tutorials and other links we've included here. You can even use this for your project, which will be really helpful. Because probably right now, a lot of you are just emailing each other files or like texting each other files, which is really inefficient. So this is definitely a good tool to use. Okay, does anyone have any questions about any of this before I do a demo? Okay, cool. Okay, so let's say I want to set up a repository for the Python DeCal group project. So what I would first do is I want to make a repository. And so to do that, I can just go to the GitHub website. So if I just go to GitHub and after I've logged in and everything, I can just go to this new button to actually create a new repository. Okay, and then for a repository name, does anyone have like their group project name or like what they're working on I can use? Like kind of the topic for your group project? Just like any name is good. Sorry, what'd you say? Trees. Okay, trees. So we can just do that repository name. And I'll make this public so that I can add my other group members to it later. And you can kind of ignore this stuff here and just create the repository. And so after you actually create it, the repository now is currently empty. So you can see there's all these different options for how you can actually set up your repository. And so we don't really have an existing repository or like anything we can import from, so we can just go ahead and do this. So if we just go to terminal, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Okay, so now if I just, I'm in my Python DeCal directory on my laptop, so now I can just kind of copy and paste these things in. Okay, and it's doing a bunch of stuff, and so now you can see if you do ls to see the files in here, it kind of added a README file, which kind of just helps you display like what your repository is about, but don't worry too much about it. So now that I've done this, let's say I wanted to make a file. So let's go to where this repository was just made. Right, so now you can see here in Python DeCal, it kind of made this into the repository, and you can see the README file here. So now let's say I wanted to add a file here. So let's say I just added a group project. So it's just like a command for making the file. So now you can see I've added a file here. If I wanted to add this to the repository for everyone in the group to see, I can use the git add command. So I'll just do git add and then the name of the file. And then after I've added it, I need to commit to kind of save the changes I've made. So I can do git commit and add a message like group project. So now you can see Git is giving me some messages that I've added this file. And so now I can push this to the repo. And so if you're just on the main branch of your repo, it'll always just be git push origin main. And basically what that means is that you're pushing from your local repository to the main branch of whatever repository you're in. So once I do this, Git will give me some more messages. And you can see that it's basically like here, it said that it's like pushed to the repository that I made. And so now if we go and refresh the repo, you can see here my group project.txt file that I've made. And so this is like as if I was just setting up the repository for my group. So let's say I was like another group member and I wanted to go and also make changes. I don't really have two computers, so I'll just make another terminal and we can kind of pretend it's a different computer. Can change the color. Okay. So let's say I'm, the other group member, and I also want to add to this. Okay. Okay, so right now I don't actually have the repository on my other computer, right? So what I would need to do is basically, I would need to download the repository, and we can do this using git clone. But let me just go into a different directory first. So I'll just say other computer. Okay, and so basically to git clone, I would also need kind of an argument for what I'm cloning. And so I would just ask my group member, like, can you send me the link to the repository? And so we can just copy that from here. And you see we just do git clone, and the URL address of our repository will be able to git clone it. And then if we do ls, we see we have the trees repository. So if we just go into that, we can see we have the two files that we had before. So it's a pretty cool way of being able to share files really quickly. And I didn't even really need to go to the GitHub website on my other computer. I was able to just clone it from the URL. Right, and so now let's say like I also want to make some changes to the group project. So I can do like, let's say I'm just making some changes. And this is just a way of like opening the file in terminal and doing it. So let's say I want to say like, hello. I can now add the file again. I can commit it, since this is a way of basically saving all the changes I made. I'll just put the message as hello. Usually you want to make the message kind of descriptive, so that if you look at this like a week from now, you'll be able to know like, okay, like this commit was this change. And now I can push it to the repository. Right, and so then if we go to the other computer, go back to the other computer, you can see since we haven't pulled anything yet, if we just open the file, so if we just open the file, like it's empty because we haven't actually pulled any of the changes. This is so annoying to do. Okay, so let's say we pull the changes by doing git pull origin main, again, just pulling from the main branch of the repository. If we open up the file again, we can see that it now says hello. And so you can basically go back and forth real time. So now let's say like we accidentally both make changes to the same code file. So let's say here I edit this to say like hello from purple. And here I change it to say like hello from green. And let's say I first add these changes in. And same similar commit. You can see that now if I go here, since we haven't pulled anything, it would still say hello from purple. But let's pull the changes. And so now you see we get this message from Git saying that we have some merge conflicts, and so it wasn't able to merge everything for me. But we can just see like their message says, you know, there have been some changes to the following file, and this would be overwritten by merge. So you can kind of tell like, okay, maybe I should go to these files and try to fix it. So let's just open up this file. Wait. What's it saying? Oh yeah, so it says actually please commit your changes or stash them before you merge. So let's just try to do that. You always have to add before you commit anything. So let's just commit this. Hello from purple. And now that I've done what Git was kind of yelling at me to do, let's try to pull again. Okay, and so this time it's saying conflict. There's a merge conflict in group project.txt. So let's try to open it and see if we can fix that. You can see here we got the weird like arrow thingies, and you know this is kind of something we have to fix. And so usually what these arrows mean is that head is the commit that's commit, or head is what you currently have on your computer. And then the thing with all of the numbers and letters is what's coming in from the other commit. So you can see that's why on our computer, the purple one, we still have hello from purple here. And what's coming in is hello from green. And so we can go ahead and try to fix this. And let's say like I want to keep the, it's kind of annoying to do it here. So we can just go ahead and open the file. So yeah, you can see it's here, and let's just try to fix it. And let's say I want to have both of them, so I can just keep both of them. Okay, and so then here I would need to then, now that I've made changes, I can do like git add as usual, commit, hello purple, and then push this. Right, and so then if we like look on our website again, you can see that we have the message hello from purple and hello from green. So everything's updating as we want it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hello green purple, that's just the name of like what you did. Agree with calling it so it remembers.
So why Git commit messages are really important is that they're basically like the message associated with all of the changes you made. So if we look here, we have 6 commits. This is where the commit messages actually show up. So you can kind of see like what each commit did. And so, obviously it wasn't really needed for this, but if you make changes over a few months, it gets really important because maybe you've written some new code and suddenly your whole animation or plot isn't working anymore. You can kind of go back through your commits and like go to the last one where it's working from and like try to fix it from there. And it's really cool because so let's say we wanted to go back to just hello from purple. We can copy the commit here. This is like the ID of this certain commit. We can copy it and then do git checkout and paste the commit ID. Right, so now basically this weird message is coming up, but basically we've gone back in time to this older commit. So now if we open up this file, it just says hello from purple. So it's a really quick way to revert all of your changes. Yeah, does anyone have any other questions about this? Okay, cool. That's all we had today. It was pretty quick, just demo and learning how to use GitHub. We definitely recommend you guys use this, or maybe try using Google's Colab, which is basically just a collaborative Jupyter notebook. It's a lot more efficient than just emailing or texting each other files. So yeah. Okay, yeah, you guys can feel free to leave early or just work on like the personal website. But that was all from today.
Thanks, Emily. Bye.
Bye.